Single mom discovers unexpected hope. The CEO's incredible gesture for her daughter's medicine. Sarah stumbled into the upscale restaurant, her body almost betraying her as exhaustion wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. After yet another grueling shift at the diner, the last place she'd imagined finding hope was in a world filled with privilege and pristine whites. A quick meal, she thought, just something to keep her going before the relentless grind resumed. As she fished coins from her purse, Lily's medicine weighed heavily on her mind, a constant reminder of her daughter's struggle with that rare illness. Unbeknownst to her, at the far end of the room, a man watched with keen interest, a high-powered CEO immersed in a kind of wealth that made her stomach turn with unease. When their eyes met, she felt the weight of judgment and scrutiny, tangled with something else, an unexpected softness from his gaze that sent her thoughts spiraling. Did he understand her fight? Did he even care? She hesitated, heart racing. Could she accept help from someone wrapped in the trappings of corporate America? That thought spiraled like a runaway roller coaster, making every part of her reason shudder. The frail thread of principle that had kept her standing, that echoed her father's teachings, threatened to snap as desperation clawed at her insides. Days passed, tangled in mundane chores and relentless responsibilities. A flicker of hope emerged through her interactions with Jordan, the CEO. He offered assistance, his intentions ambiguous amidst murmurs that fluttered like shadows. What was life without her pride? Night after night, the late hours of cleaning houses became a grim foreshadowing of her choices, and each eager discussion with him pierced through her certainty. She wondered if his generosity came with strings attached. If she accepted, was she losing a part of herself? A fear solidified. What kind of sacrifices would she have to make? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each encounter spurred a whirlwind of emotions. When Jordan smiled, she felt an unexpected warmth, a flicker of connection that led her to briefly wonder if he might see her as more than just a struggling single mom. Yet, guilt washed over her like a tidal wave, reminding her she could not abandon her values. Every potential good deed felt tinted with suspicion, and she grappled with the core of her integrity. Was she worthy of aid, or was it tainted by his world of privilege? What would her father think of her wavering beliefs? Sarah found herself standing on a precipice, torn between a desperate need for help for Lily and an unwavering dedication to the principles of hard work and dignity, which told her to push through, no matter the implications. With every passing day, choices loomed larger, haunting her thoughts like an echo she couldn't escape. The stakes grew ever higher, and as if the universe conspired against her, the tension between survival and self-respect reached its boiling point. Would accepting his help shatter the legacy she had fought so hard to maintain? As uncertainty permeated the air, an irreversible moment lingered, one that tugged at both their hearts, waiting for clarity amid desperation. What path would they choose, and would it lead them to the redemption they sought, or further into a moral abyss? The answer loomed ever so close, drowning in their complex emotions and unanswered questions. The following day, Sarah awoke with a clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. The sun streamed through the small window in her cramped apartment, illuminating the dust motes that floated lazily in the light. It struck her then, a moment of determination wrapped in the gentle rays of a new day. She resolved to confront the turmoil within her. How could she channel her growing sense of hopelessness into something tangible? The forced smiles and polite nods at the diner settled like stones in her stomach. She needed to reclaim her strength. As she prepared for another day at work, small changes began to emerge. While setting out her cleaning supplies, she took a moment to practice her posture, holding her head high. Each sweep of the mop became an act of defiance against the weight of her circumstances. She was not just a single mother scraping by, she was a warrior, determined to make every moment count for Lily's sake. The stranger's gaze that once unnerved her now ignited a spark of interest. What if Jordan could be the key to unlocking a path she hadn't considered? At the diner, business was slow. The familiar faces came through the door, yet today felt different. Instead of merely surviving their judgments, she began to question their perceptions. Many of her patrons were affluent, yet she speculated if they ever truly grasped the trials of just scraping by. Sarah decided she would tell her story, not for sympathy, but to create connection. It was time to reclaim her narrative. When she spotted Jordan entering her workplace, her heartbeat quickened. His presence now seemed less intimidating, more like an opportunity. She approached him, her mind racing through the words she wanted to say. Yet, doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. Would he understand her struggle or just see her as another project? Taking a breath, she straightened her shoulders and approached him, her stomach a mix of nerves and purpose. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Jordan looked surprised but nodded, motioning for her to follow him to a quieter corner. Her heart thudded in her chest. This was it. This was the confrontation that would either solidify her place in this world of privilege or reinforce her resolve to stay away from it. She opened up about Lily's ongoing struggles and her fierce determination to keep fighting, despite the barriers. With each word, she felt lighter, unburdening her fears, and addressing the profound choice before her. Jordan listened intently, his expression shifting from passive interest to genuine concern. "I wish I could help," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I can connect you with some resources, and I know people in the pharmaceutical industry who might assist with funding Lily's treatment." As he spoke, Sarah's defenses wavered. The offer was substantial, embodying hope for Lily's future, yet the trepidation crept back in. Would help from a man like Jordan come at a cost, a price she wasn't prepared to pay in personal integrity? "Why me?" she blurted, unable to contain her disbelief. "Because you deserve it," he replied, and the sincerity of his words felt like a splash of cold water. The cogs of her mind whirred, igniting an internal debate about independence versus the possibility of support. Her ideals of hard work clashed violently with the reality of her child's needs. It struck her perhaps her worthiness wasn't defined by her circumstances. Maybe it was a chance to build something better, not just for her, but for Lily. That realization pushed her into unexplored territories of her heart. Was it time to let someone in, to accept help without surrendering her dignity? Just then, the tension in the air felt almost tangible, a moment suspended in time, waiting for her decision. With a steely resolve, she met Jordan's gaze. "Tell me more," she said, each word a challenge to herself to step into the unknown. As she leaned into the conversation, the possibilities stretched before her like an open road. What lay ahead remained uncertain, yet whatever lay next could redefine not just her path, but her very understanding of strength and support. And outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, stirring a storm that was all too familiar. The question loomed larger: what would Sarah sacrifice to protect her daughter's future, and at what cost? Holding on to Jordan's gaze felt momentous, like crossing a threshold she never knew existed. His proposition hung in the air, transforming their conversation from an uneasy exchange to a critical juncture in her life. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing through the implications of his offer. This was not simply about Lily's treatment, it was about acknowledging her own worth in a landscape where she had often felt invisible. "Connect me with resources?" she echoed, her voice trembling slightly as she grappled with the gravity of accepting support. "But what does that mean for you, really?" "Nothing more than doing what I can to help," Jordan replied, his eyes steady. "And if you're worried about influence or dependence, you can set the terms. We just want to see Lily thrive." The sincerity caught Sarah off guard. Beneath the surface of his generous proposition, she wondered if there was something deeper at play. Was it possible he recognized something within her, a strength she hadn't even known existed? She faced a choice that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Would accepting help mean compromising her independence or redefining it? "Okay," she said, her voice firmer. "What kind of resources are we talking about?" Jordan leaned forward, his enthusiasm tangible. I can introduce you to a couple of people who run nonprofits focused on children's health. They have funds available for families in situations like yours. Plus, I know a few compassionate professionals who might assist with Lily's treatment specifically. With each word, a flicker of hope ignited inside her. The thought of Lily receiving proper care was alluring, but as she envisioned the possibilities, a shadow of doubt clouded her excitement. Was this a stepping stone or a slippery slope? She raised her hand, a gesture to pause. I appreciate this, truly. I just need to think about it. Of course, he said, pulling back slightly, respectful of her need to process. That night, beneath the soft glow of a bedside lamp, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, contemplating the choices ahead. She gazed at Lily, who slept soundly, oblivious to the world's challenges. In that moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming need to protect her child not just from her illness, but from the weight of her decisions. What would accepting help from Jordan mean for her as a mother? This question circled in her mind like an unrelenting storm. As she mulled over the consequences, she began to document her thoughts in a small notebook. Writing had always been therapeutic for her, an escape that allowed her to untangle her racing thoughts. She poured out her fears, her hopes, and her unresolved conflicts, refining her internal narrative. Strength lay in knowledge, she reminded herself, and her journal became a lifeline. With each page, she recognized her own resilience and the woman she was becoming, a mother willing to fight for her child. Elizabeth Gilbert once wrote that creativity was not a rare gift but a response to the world's demands. Her writing was a response that could serve her family's needs. Okay, Sarah, she whispered to herself, feeling empowered. It's time to bring your story to life. With renewed clarity, she closed the notebook, realizing the act of sharing her narrative wasn't just about reaching out to Jordan. It was also a commitment to articulate her own strengths, to find healing in voice and story. The next day, with her thoughts more organized than ever, Sarah revisited the diner. The familiar faces seemed to blend into the background as she took stock of her environment. There was an essence of permanence in the cafe, a notion she once found comforting. But now, it felt different, like a cocoon waiting to be burst open, offering space for transformation. She noticed Jordan sitting at a table, scanning his phone. As she approached, the familiar trepidation returned, but this time mixed with determination. She was no longer the woman merely scraping by, but a voice of experience, ready to rewrite her narrative. Jordan, she proclaimed as she reached him. I'm ready to take the next step. The newfound strength in her voice caught even her off guard as Jordan's piercing gaze filled with admiration and anticipation. It was time to navigate this transition, but as she sat across from him, a sudden question emerged. What secrets lay in the depths of her story that she had yet to confront? The storm outside erupted, emphasizing the chaos around. Each raindrop mirrored her internal turmoil. Was she prepared to unveil those truths? As the diner filled with sound, her heart raced, knowing she was on the brink of uncovering pieces of herself she had long kept hidden. What lies beneath her surface might just redefine everything. As Sarah settled into the booth across from Jordan, a low hum of anticipation echoed between them. The rain continued to tap against the diner windows, a rhythmic reminder of the tempest swirling within her. Life had brought her to this moment, her resolve hardening like clay, shaped yet unpredictable. Tell me more about these connections, she urged, her fingers inching toward her notebook resting atop the table. I'm curious about what each one can offer. Jordan nodded, his demeanor instantly shifting to that of a mentor. One organization focuses on advocating for medical funding for children. They often get grants specifically for families dealing with extraordinary medical expenses. As he detailed the resources available, a mix of excitement and apprehension fluttered in Sarah's chest. The notion of funding was tantalizing, but she felt uneasy about relying on outside assistance. Yet, a powerful thought pulsed through her: this could ease some of Lily's burdens. The ability to give her daughter the care she needed might require both bravery and vulnerability, a lesson she had to accept if she wanted to move forward. Do you think they've seen cases like Lily's before? she asked, her voice softer now, revealing the deeper worry behind her practical exterior. They've helped children with similar conditions. You'd be surprised at the passion and compassion this community carries. They're driven by their own stories too, Jordan replied, his tone laced with understanding. Sarah leaned in, absorbing his words. Maybe this was the answer she had been searching for, a way to provide for Lily while embracing the connections that were being offered to her. Was it so wrong to accept help? Every line she wrote in her notebook resonated with a struggle she faced, the balance between independence and interdependence. What about the professionals you mentioned? Her voice carried a hint of urgency, hoping to uncover something more concrete. Nutritionists, holistic therapists, and even child psychologists specializing in medical trauma. They can align with Lily's treatment needs and provide a fuller support system, he explained. That a revelation began to dawn within her. Accepting help did not diminish her strength. Instead, it was a chance to fortify herself, becoming a better advocate for Lily's well-being in the process. This realization ignited a fierce determination. Empowerment was within reach, and it was time to reclaim her narrative. I want to set up meetings with these people within the next week, Sarah declared, the firmness in her tone almost startling her. I need to see what they can offer. Jordan's smile was full of encouragement. That's the spirit. You're taking control of your path, and that's no small feat. She felt liberated by her decision. The thought of actually moving forward, pursuing all options to help her daughter, filled her with an unexpected vitality. But at the same time, the shadows of her past whispered insecurities, reminding her of the failures she feared were lurking just beneath the surface. As they continued discussing logistics, Sarah was also confronted with unresolved feelings. The secrets she had buried in her heart lingered uncomfortably, demanding to be acknowledged. Would embracing this new journey mean confronting those hidden fragments of her past? The more they talked, the more the static noise surrounding her faded. In that moment, as she looked at Jordan's attentive expression, the air was thick with potential, layering her fears with a sense of responsibility and hope. This was her opportunity, not just for Lily, but for herself. Perhaps the first meeting can be a joint effort, he suggested. I can accompany you to introduce you, if that would help. A spark of gratitude and surprise surged through her. The offer, however, also planted seeds of hesitation. She realized it would mean exposing her vulnerabilities, perhaps even the fear that accepting help made her appear weak. I'd need time to think about that, Sarah responded carefully. Codependence was a balancing act, and she wondered if she was ready to navigate that fine line. But as they finished their discussion and parted ways, an overwhelming sense of clarity washed over Sarah. Along with her ambitions, she needed to gather strength to confront the truths she had yet to speak aloud about her own life. Walking back to her car, each step felt different. The rain had lightened to a mist, mirroring her newly found determination. As she breathed in the fresh scent of the wet pavement, she contemplated how sharing her story with Jordan had begun to lift the veil on her fears. What deeper revelations awaited her, and how would they change her confrontation with her deepest insecurities? The path to empowerment stretched before her, but crossing into that territory would demand the unveiling of her truth. With each heartbeat, Sarah resolved to explore just how far she could go as she approached her next challenge. The moment of raw honesty was approaching, and she could feel her heart racing at the impending confrontation both with herself and the shadows of her past. The next morning arrived with an electric sense of purpose buzzing in Sarah's chest. She awoke before dawn, the promise of the new day nudging her towards action. The rain had faded, replaced by a crisp clarity that mirrored her mindset. In that quiet hour, she sipped her coffee, feeling the warmth seep into her fingers, grounding her as she prepared for the coming challenges. She had a plan, one that felt possible for the first time. She opened her notebook and reread the notes from her conversation with Jordan. The names of the organizations danced on the page, each representing a lifeline for Lily. Sarah wrote out a list of priorities, methodically identifying what she needed from meetings with each professional. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, there was a thrilling rush to dissect the chaos into manageable segments. First on her agenda was the organization dedicated to medical funding. She spent time researching their website, absorbing every detail about their mission and previous projects. The testimonials of families who had seen their children thrive under the weight of financial support tugged at her heart. This was not just a lifeline, it was a community, and a safe space where she could advocate for her daughter without fear of judgment. As the morning progressed, she called to set up her first meeting. Speaking to the coordinator felt like stepping into a new dimension of control. Each word exchanged reinforced her commitment to action, a stark contrast to the paralysis she had felt in the past. She scheduled a meeting for the following week, and as she hung up, a rush of adrenaline surged through her. What had once seemed insurmountable now felt achievable. Then, she turned her attention to nutritionists. Everyone always emphasized the importance of diet in health management. Yet, Sarah had lingered too long in her own fears about whether she could afford that help, let alone adapt to the regimen such a professional might suggest. But resolve had taken root. It was time to confront her dietary misgivings, not just for her but for Lily. A call to a holistic nutritionist led to another appointment. Sarah felt a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Would this expert truly understand their unique needs, or was it another path of disappointment? Still, she pushed those thoughts aside. In the realm of her growth, every step felt important, even the unsettling ones. As lunch approached, Sarah found herself staring at her reflection in the cafe restroom mirror. The woman she saw was different. Strength was emerging, stubbornly ripping apart the facade of vulnerability she had clung to for so long. Yet lurking just beneath that newfound empowerment was a nagging fear. What if she failed? What if asking for help led to a web of codependency, shackling her further to her insecurities? She took a deep breath, grounding herself. Opening up pathways to healing meant confronting those fears head-on. For too long, she had equated self-reliance with isolation. This transformation required not just accepting help but recognizing her own strengths and forging those connections. The day wore on, each new interaction becoming a stitch in the fabric of her growing resolve. She called the psychologist next, an expert who specialized in medical trauma. As she dialed, her heart raced again, but not from fear this time, it was anticipation. "Hello." The voice on the other end held a calm warmth that beckoned her forward. After exchanging a few words, Sarah found herself sharing snippets of their story of Lily, the battles she faced, and her mother's struggle for control. It felt liberating. For each word she spoke, she felt a piece of her burden lift, slowly transforming into a strength born from vulnerability. "Yes, I'd love to set up a meeting," she concluded, her voice steady. With every decision made, a clearer sense of purpose crystallized. Sarah was threading the needle between independence and interdependence, ready to embrace the beautiful complexity of both. As she prepared to leave the cafe, her phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "Remember, reaching out and leaning on others is part of growth. You've got this." Reassured, she stepped outside. The sun broke through the clouds, illuminating her path, but deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The very notion of facing her fears head-on and opening her heart required a bravery she had yet to fully grasp. Tomorrow, she would confront not just the professionals she had contacted but also the parts of herself long buried. Those shadows demanded recognition, and perhaps in facing them, she would uncover older truths, ones that could propel her further down this new path. With her heart pounding in anticipation, Sarah realized the tides were turning, not just for Lily but for her too. The moment of deep introspection and confrontation loomed closer, and its weight felt both daunting and exhilarating. What would she learn about herself when she finally peeled back those layers? There was no turning back now. Her journey toward a bold new chapter awaited. The following morning came with a momentum that pushed Sarah out of bed with a sense of urgency. She had meticulously planned the day ahead, with meetings scheduled and a newfound independence igniting every step she took. The coffee brewed in the kitchen filled the air with an aroma that propelled her forward, each sip fueling her determination. She dressed with intent, running her fingers over the fabric of her blouse, choosing colors that symbolized confidence rather than the muted tones she usually opted for. Today, she would step boldly into the world not just for herself but for Lily. Sarah knew each meeting was a thread in the fabric of their lives, one that could weave a narrative of optimism or despair based on her choices. Her first meeting was with the coordinator from the medical funding organization. The office was bright and welcoming, but as she walked through the doors, anxiety curled around her stomach. What if she faltered? What if they dismissed her request even before she presented her case? Each thought magnified her insecurities. Sarah. The receptionist's voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. You're here for the meeting with Ms. Evans. Taking a breath, Sarah straightened her shoulders, mentally reminding herself of the preparation that had brought her here. Ms. Evans greeted her with a warm smile, motioning her to take a seat. I've been looking forward to our conversation. Tell me about Lily. The simple prompt sparked a power within Sarah she hadn't anticipated. She's a fighter, she began, her voice swelling with pride. Every day is a new battle against the illness she faces, and I want to ensure she has every opportunity to thrive. As she spoke, each word became a shield against her doubts, each sentence a claim of her maternal strength. Ms. Evans listened intently, nodding, taking notes. The exchange felt empowering. The way each question brought answers from deep within Sarah turned the meeting into more than just a formality, it was an affirmation of her role as Lily's advocate. Sarah could feel the tangibility of hope building between them, and the fear that had loomed over her began to dissipate. Afterward, she felt lighter, almost liberated. Her next appointment with the nutritionist was equally critical, and as she drove, determination steered her. You can do this, she whispered, both a mantra and a reminder. The nutritionist's office was equipped with colorful charts and images dancing along the walls. How can I help you today? The nutritionist asked, her voice inviting yet professional. Sarah took a breath, grounding herself. I'm really seeking ways to improve Lily's diet. I need sustainable changes, nothing that will overwhelm us. She relayed their current struggles, and the nutritionist listened patiently, engaging her with constructive ideas and relatable strategies. As they drafted a tailored plan together, Sarah felt her confidence mounting. Each suggestion, whether it involved simple recipe swaps or engaging Lily in meal prep, resonated with her. It was a chance to integrate health into their lives without sacrificing simplicity, and with each recommendation, Sarah visualized a happy kitchen filled with laughter and nourishment. However, as she left the nutritionist's office, a hesitant part of her whispered doubts about her ability to actually implement these changes. What if she stumbled? Cooking had not been her strength, and now she was tasked with learning new recipes that would support her daughter's health. Yet, she reminded herself of her meeting's outcomes and how she had transformed worries into action. Clenching her fists, Sarah nodded to herself. Resilience was her new language, and today wasn't just significant, it was pivotal. That evening, she found herself in the kitchen, hopeful yet apprehensive. She surveyed the recipes she had taken home from the nutritionist, each representing a challenge but also an opportunity for growth. As she pulled out ingredients, she realized this was her moment of truth. In executing the simple recipes, she discovered an unanticipated rhythm. Chopping vegetables became almost meditative, a point of focus that cleared her mind of clutter. It was as if she was crafting not just meals but a new identity, one that embraced both her past fears and current aspirations. The kitchen felt alive with potential, just like her journey. But even as she mixed ingredients, lingering uncertainties haunted her. Could she sustain this change amid life's unpredictability? Would she collapse under the pressure or forge ahead with each day, always searching for balance? The more she contemplated the challenges ahead, the more a sense of urgency grew. Each step she took was uncharted territory. Tomorrow, she would meet the psychologist, a final piece to this puzzle of healing, and perhaps there, she might finally confront the emotional shadows looming in her heart. As night fell, Sarah lay in bed, uncertainty wrapped around her like a blanket. She had taken steps forward, but the truth remained, personal growth was not a linear path. It was messy, complicated, and absolutely essential. What realities would the psychologist unveil in their session? Would Sarah find the courage to face her past, or would she discover even deeper fears intertwined with her determination? The answers awaited on the horizon, and the promise of the new day beckoned. As dawn's light crept through her curtains, Sarah awoke with a knot of anticipation tightening in her chest. Today's session held a weighty promise: final answers, potential breakthroughs, confrontation of her inner demons. She reminded herself that this was a strategic step, a stepping stone on her path of transformation. The morning routine felt meticulously focused, oatmeal simmered on the stove, and her heart thudded loudly in response to each second ticking by. After a hasty breakfast with Lily, where she tried to mask her anxiety behind casual dialogue and laughter, Sarah felt a sense of urgency pulling her toward the door. Once behind the wheel, she rehearsed potential dialogues in her mind. What would she reveal? How could she articulate the feelings of inadequacy that often prompted her to draw inward? Would vulnerability translate to strength, or would it unravel the confidence she had fought so hard to build? Each question coiled around her thoughts uneasily, like a vine threatening to choke the budding flower of her resolve. Arriving at the psychologist's office, the imposing structure loomed ahead. The crisp air was refreshing, yet it offered little comfort against the anxieties swirling inside her. As she made her way through the front door, she could feel the familiar tinge of apprehension. Despite the assurance her previous meetings had rendered, the unknown nature of today's exploration made her hesitate. Dr. Hargrove welcomed her with a steady gaze and a kind smile that eased some of Sarah's tension. "Good morning, Sarah. I'm glad you're here," he said gently, gesturing for her to sit on the plush chair opposite him. "Thanks," she managed, voice quivering slightly, as she settled into the space, feeling almost cocooned yet exposed. "Let's talk about where you're at. What's been on your mind lately?" he prompted, leaning forward in his own chair, signaling openness. Sarah paused, searching for a starting point as vulnerability threatened to bubble to the surface. "There's so much I feel like I'm navigating a maze without a map." As she spoke, the words began to unravel her tightly held emotions. She vulnerabilities poured out, her history, her responsibility as a mother, and the underlying fears of not providing enough for Lily. "I'm afraid of not being enough," she confessed, her voice cracking under the weight of the revelation. Dr. Hargrove listened attentively. "Tell me more about that." "I don't know if I'm doing the right things for her or for me," she replied, feeling a swell of tears threaten at the corners of her eyes. "Every time I think I'm on the right track, I stumble into doubt again. I'm scared I'll fail her." The conversation deepened, sharing her fears allowed a strange liberation. As Dr. Hargrove guided her through her thoughts, she began to confront the foundational structures of her beliefs. Each question he posed was a scalpel, carefully slicing through her defenses and exposing the deeper scars of her past loss, regret, and the haunting whispers of unworthiness. Slowly, clarity emerged. Sarah began to unearth buried thoughts, pieces of herself she had restricted for far too long. The tension spilling from her heart felt both daunting and exhilarating. She had spent so much time compartmentalizing her struggles that confronting them aloud was as unsettling as it was necessary. Toward the end of their session, Dr. Hargrove nudged her toward a realization. "It's important to understand that every step you take to support Lily also serves you. Your growth isn't just about her, it's your journey too." A light bulb flickered in Sarah's mind. Could it be that her desire to uplift her daughter was intertwined with her pursuit of self? Facing her doubts opened an unforeseen pathway toward healing, each doubt transforming into an opportunity for change. As she left the office, the spring in her step felt lighter, yet a new notion filled the void of repressed fears: she must actively cultivate her personal growth. This mindset shift felt pivotal and not devoid of challenges. Empowerment was a choice, not merely a consequence of circumstance. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah dialed her friend's number as she walked to her car, wanting to discuss the meal plans, support, and possibly simple solutions that could enrich their lives together. Yet beneath her newfound motivation lingered that familiar question: what other facets of her past would tarnish her future if left unexamined? Each encounter layered complexity upon complexities, and as she drove home, she knew this journey had only begun. In her mind, another session with Dr. Hargrove loomed, an inquiry deeper than she had prepared for today. How could she navigate the treacherous waters of vulnerability without getting overwhelmed? What more lay buried in the depths of her consciousness waiting to be awakened? As she turned the corner toward home, Sarah knew she was on the brink of discovery, a confrontation of not only her fears but also a revelation of power within herself she had yet to fully understand. Arriving home, Sarah's heart raced, no longer tethered by the weight of her earlier anxieties. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, touching every surface with a golden warmth that felt almost like a promise. Yet, as she placed her bag down, the palpable sense of possibility was intermingled with a quiet expectation. She sensed that her journey would test her in ways she had yet to fully comprehend. Lily was sprawled on the floor, engrossed in her drawings. The colorful array of crayons lay scattered around her, and the joyous noise of scribbling permeated the room with a lively energy. Sarah knelt beside her, captivated by the vivid creations that emerged from her daughter's imagination. As she watched Lily pour colors onto the page, she couldn't help but marvel at the boundless creativity that lay within. "Wow! That's beautiful!" Sarah exclaimed, reaching for a nearby crayon. Her daughter beamed, pride illuminating her face. It was a simple gesture, yet it resonated deeply with Sarah, reminding her of her own need to express herself rather than retreat into silence. "Can I draw with you?" "Sure." Lily chirped, shoving a crayon into her mother's hand. As they colored together, Sarah's mind drifted back to the insights she'd gained earlier with Dr. Hargrove. The idea of intertwining her own progress with Lily's well-being echoed louder with every stroke of the crayon. Each moment spent encouraging her daughter also represented an investment in her own healing. Yet an unease swelled within her, like a shadow looming just behind the light of her revelations. Later that evening, as she tidied up after dinner, Sarah's thoughts spiraled back to themes of vulnerability. Her interaction with Dr. Hargrove had unearthed profound truths, but those truths also laid bare her fears. What if she ventured too far down this path of self-exploration, exposing more than she was ready to confront? Would her newfound strength falter if she faced the depths of her unresolved past? She pondered calling Dr. Hargrove, but uncertainty held her back. Instead, she replayed their last conversation in her mind, focusing on his reminder that growth was linear, it ebbed and flowed like the tide. Was she fortified enough to explore these turbulent waters, or would she find herself adrift? As night sank into her home, idly scrolling through her phone, Sarah noticed a notification flash across the screen. A local charity event presented an opportunity to volunteer, something she used to love doing before life pulled her in various directions. Recapturing that sense of community and purpose beckoned to her like a forgotten melody, yet, excitement collided with fear. What if stepping into this role exposed her fragility? Her instinct was to retreat, to shield herself from any potential disappointment. But what if it also offered a chance for connection and personal growth? Could this late decision serve as another stepping stone in her journey? Lily's laughter echoed from her room, grounding Sarah momentarily in the present. She pushed aside her doubts and made a decision: she would attend the event. Even if it felt uncomfortable, it represented a commitment to both her and her daughter's growth. As she pulled the volunteer application from her email, a strange energy surged through her, anticipation flared alongside the fear. Each choice she made felt monumental, as if shifting the very core of her identity. What would she discover about herself through this engagement? The night stretched ahead as she wrestled with the unknowns, each thought igniting determination in her veins. The following day would bring renewed encounters, personal challenges, and potentially, an unexpected revelation. As Sarah turned off the light in her room, curling into her bed, she woke to a heavy realization: in stepping outside her comfort zone, she teetered on the brink of authentic transformation. But the question remained: could she embrace this journey without letting the shadows of her past consume her? As sleep slipped over her, a new directive emerged in her mind: she had to confront the emotions that lingered, the fears that shadowed her each day. Would this be the moment she found clarity, or the time she stumbled? The path lay ahead, laden with possibility, but it was hers to traverse alone. The morning light filtered in through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over Sarah as she prepared breakfast. She felt a spark of optimism, an unfamiliar yet encouraging sensation that contrasted sharply with her usual anxiety. Today, she would volunteer at the charity, stepping into a role that held the potential for growth. It was a chance to reclaim a part of herself she thought she'd lost forever. As she scrambled eggs, her thoughts drifted to the countless times she'd retreated into the comfortable predictability of her daily routine, avoiding any semblance of disruption. The idea of stepping beyond those boundaries sent her heart racing with both excitement and dread. She reminded herself that facing this challenge would ultimately serve a greater purpose, not just for her, but for Lily too. Lily bounded into the kitchen, her hair slightly messy and her eyes alight with enthusiasm. She plopped down at the table, her innocence a stark reminder of the importance of resilience. "Are you going to help people today, Mommy?" she asked cheerfully, digging into a slice of toast. "Yes, sweetie. I am," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt inside. "I think it's really important to help others, don't you?" Lily nodded vigorously. "I want to help too. Can I come with you?" The thought tugged at Sarah's heartstrings. She longed to share this experience with her daughter, but doubt settled in. The event could be overwhelming, the roles were likely structured, demanding focus from the volunteers. "Maybe next time," she said gently, staving off the torrent of apprehension that threatened to overwhelm her. As the morning wore on, thoughts of her encounter with Dr. Hargrove replayed in Sarah's mind. The doctor had spoken about the importance of vulnerability, how admitting weakness was the first step toward strength. Could volunteering serve as a platform for her to embrace that idea? The notion felt daunting, yet tantalizing. When it was finally time to leave, Sarah dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that promised a blend of professionalism and comfort. Outside, the brisk air invigorated her as she pulled out her phone to navigate to the location. With every step toward the venue, uncertainty mixed with determination. Upon arrival, she was greeted by the sound of cheerful chatter and the sight of various stations set up for volunteers. There was a palpable energy in the air, a blend of nervousness and excitement among experienced volunteers buzzing with purpose. Sarah hesitated on the threshold, wondering if she truly belonged amidst these seemingly capable individuals. However, the immediate encounter with the volunteer coordinator, a woman named Maria, quickly dispelled some of her apprehension. Maria's warmth radiated like a beacon, and she promptly introduced Sarah to the group, her genuine enthusiasm breaking through Sarah's inhibitions. As they discussed tasks, a peculiar surge of courage filled Sarah, yet, as the day progressed and she became involved, she was hit with a wave of self-doubt. The complexity of organizing the activities and managing the children was more than she'd anticipated. Her mind raced with thoughts of inadequacy. It felt all too easy to crumple back into her shell. In the midst of her anxious spirals, a child approached her, clutching a bright paper airplane. "Can you help me make it fly?" the boy asked, looking up with hopeful eyes. The simple request jolted Sarah out of her spiraling thoughts. Perhaps this was her moment, the opportunity to not only help this child but also to reconnect with a part of herself that thrived in creativity and joy. Carefully, she knelt beside him, her fingers deftly folding the paper, and with one swift motion, they sent it soaring together. A thrill rushed through her as she watched the airplane catch the wind. "See? You did it!" she exclaimed, the boy's laughter echoing in her ears, infusing her with radiance. Here it was, this connection, this purpose. And as she shared that small victory, an emotion bubbled up within her. Could it be that these moments of vulnerability were paving the way for something deeper? As more children gathered, eager to create and dream together, Sarah felt the shadows of her past receding ever so slightly, but just as she began to feel a sense of belonging, a voice from behind caught her attention. It was a familiar figure, the last person she expected to see at a volunteer gathering, a former colleague from her years at the nonprofit organization. Their eyes met, and a chill ran down her spine. What would he say? Would he see the cracks she had worked so hard to mend? As tension coiled in her chest, Sarah realized she now faced an unexpected adversary. The moment of truth loomed before her. How would she confront the echoes of her past while nurturing her present growth? Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her as her former colleague approached, his expression inscrutable. Everything she had worked for, each step toward healing and acceptance, now hung in a fragile balance. Would he see her as she had been, as the overwhelmed mother struggling against the tides of life? Would he judge her for the choices that had led to this moment? The self-doubt she thought she had shredded temporarily resurfaced, knotting tight in her stomach. "Sarah," he greeted with a hint of surprise that stung more than she anticipated. "It's good to see you." The usual small talk eluded her as she searched his face for a clue about what he might think. Instead of responding to the judgment brewing in her mind, she steadied her breath. She wasn't that same woman who faltered with self-doubt. She was a mother, a warrior, fiercely devoted to creating a better future for her daughter. "Thank you," she finally responded, her voice laced with a newfound assertiveness. "What brings you here?" "Yes, I'm just helping out today as well," he replied casually. "It's a great cause." His words felt flat, and Sarah sensed that he was scanning her, measuring her against preconceived barriers, memories of their past within the walls of that old nonprofit. In that moment, she realized that the weight of his perception no longer had power over her. "I'm here to support children in need," she affirmed, letting the conviction in her voice resonate. "I've learned that there are ways we can help each other grow, rather than just survive." For the first time, she noticed his surprise shift into genuine intrigue. He was no longer viewing her through the haze of past impressions but as a mother with purpose, a woman courageous enough to face the shadows. "What do you mean?" he asked, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "I mean, I've spent too long hiding from my struggles, afraid they would define me. Today, I'm learning that growth happens when we lean on each other, share our stories, and embrace our vulnerabilities," she explained. The parts of her she had kept dormant began to stir alive again as she continued, "Changing my mindset has transformed my life. I'm advocating not just for my daughter, but extending that compassion to every child fighting their own battles." Her words, articulate and unflinching, transformed what could have been scrutiny into meaningful dialogue. The chasm she had perceived between them narrowed, revealing a shared mission instead of a competitive divide. "Wow, Sarah. That's inspiring," he said, his tone softening. "It's great to see you taking such initiative." With that acknowledgement, she felt a surge of pride swell within her. For the first time in a long while, the victory of vulnerability rose above the shadows, reflecting the work she had done. As the day unfolded, Sarah became a pillar of support for the children she guided, allowing their laughter and creativity to infuse her spirit. The sensation of community she had once feared and avoided was blossoming right before her eyes. With each moment spent volunteering, she was no longer merely a single mother on the fringes but a source of strength and encouragement. When the day came to an end, Sarah reflected on the transformation she had undergone, not just in accepting help but embracing the very core of her journey. It wasn't just a matter of receiving compassion, it was establishing herself as a true advocate, creating an environment of hope for her daughter and the young lives they were helping together. Each decision Sarah made now resonated with a solid confidence, her past reminding her of where she had come from, not holding her prisoner but igniting her growth. She was no longer paralyzed by fear but propelled by action, proud to stand at the convergence of vulnerability and strength. Through her unwavering determination, Sarah had cultivated a new identity. As she held her daughter's hand that night, she could feel the weight of acceptance. She had not only conquered the fears that plagued her but had emerged with a network of allies, people who believed in her journey toward a better life for Lily. "Today was amazing, Mommy," Lily exclaimed, snuggling close. "You helped so many kids." "I did," Sarah affirmed, a smile breaking across her face. "And I think it's only the beginning of our adventure." As they sat together, Sarah knew she had both achieved and demonstrated a newfound competence. This was what it felt like to be a mother, forging a path for Lily, yes, but for herself too. She embraced the truth that there was profound power in sharing stories, in standing strong amidst uncertainty. Finally, a reality dawned on her that night. The act of acceptance didn't weaken her resolve, it fortified her understanding of what it meant to be human. While shadows never completely disappeared, they transformed into guiding lights on her increasingly bright horizon. Tomorrow, they would wake to new challenges, but Sarah felt ready, equipped with tools of resilience, clarity, and connection. Each day would present opportunities to conquer fear and cultivate hope, one brave choice at a time. You need to subscribe now to ensure you never miss life-changing stories like Sarah's journey. Leave a like now to support our community and let the algorithm know these stories matter. Comment below your thoughts and reactions to this incredible conclusion. We want to hear from you, and for goodness sake, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could be inspired by Sarah's triumph. Don't wait even one more second to share hope and resilience.